Hey guys, Garvey here. Today, I just want to take some time to talk about something I find really interesting and something I think about a lot, that being the uniqueness of film. And what I mean by that is, what is it that makes film stand out compared to all the other art forms, such as literature, paintings, music, architecture, etc. Also, what makes fans and artists alike appreciate and make films? I guess the simplest way to phrase this question is, what are the intrinsic properties of film that make it stand out? And why is it that some people prefer film as opposed to other art forms? With a question like this, I think it's best to start at the most basic and fundamental level and then work our way up and out through the more complex results of these fundamental shifts. Also, it's important to point out what doesn't make film unique. For example, it's not the composition or the lighting, for these exist in photography and paintings. It's not the acting, because that obviously and is perhaps better on the theater stage. So what is the most authentic attribute of film? Well, I think it's safe to say that at its core, film is about juxtaposition between one shot and another through the editing of the movie. It's interesting because this form of juxtaposition doesn't really exist in any other art form or even in the real world. Sure, paintings have collages, but I don't think that's comparable to the whole image changing in an instant. Poetry has a similar focus on comparing images, but to me, that seems more similar to the collage than the edit. With poems, it takes time to contrast the images, and that's the most important factor. Film was the first art form to be able to compare images in a single instant. I think the closest relative to films in the real world would be dreams. It's very common to jump from one place to another or one person to another in a dream. I think this connection helps make film one of the dreamiest art forms. I made an entire video discussing film's relationship to dreams and poetry, so if you're interested in this aspect of film, I would highly recommend you check it out. So if the absolute feature of film is juxtaposition between images, how does this affect the form? And how does this affect people's appreciation of film over other art forms? I think one of the most interesting things about film is that it's the first art form in which America is the center and has really maintained a lot of relevance throughout the entire history of film. If you look at other art forms like literature, people tend to think about Shakespeare and Dostoevsky before they think about Mark Twain. Now, I'm not saying that America hasn't produced any literary masterpieces, but that England and Russia just seem to be more consistent and well known for it. The same thing goes for paintings. People are far more familiar with the French and Italians. Even in American schools, far more time is spent teaching French and Italian works as opposed to American painting pieces. Good film isn't exclusive to America. Every country has contributed to the story of film and has helped produce some of the great works. But these tend to be within certain decades. Italy was brilliant during Neorealism. The French were fantastic during the New Wave. But America has really maintained persistence and interest within film, and decade after decade has continually produced some of the greatest directors, writers, editors, and cinematographers. Why is that? Well, it seems to me that in America, people have a lot more innate conflict within themselves, more so than in other countries. And I'm not talking about hazard or hardship. There's obviously places with far more strifes than America, but the United States seems to be the most heterogeneous. I think this comes up from the mere idea of what it means to be an American. Because you're an American, but you're also your past. Whether your ancestry comes from Mexico, Ireland, Italy, France, Germany, Japan, Egypt, etc., you can never let go from your traditions or your connections to your original home, even if you were born in America. So with that in mind, I think it's safe to say that a lot of Americans are torn between their American pride and their ancestral history. And this isn't just an inner conflict. You can also see this in the outside world. Look at New York, for example. There's a street where one side's Little Italy and the other side's Chinatown. And this is just a surface level contrast. You can dig far deeper and find a plethora of things that divide Americans from one another. But there's also so much that unites American culture, leading to this conflict of emotions. And I think this fundamental conflict has led America to creating some of the greatest filmmakers of all time. Because filmmaking isn't like architecture or sculptures, where it's about cohesion and unity of form. And it's certainly not like literature or music, where the artist tries to create a harmony or a complex symphony. Rather, film is purely about conflict, both conflict within the human heart and the turmoil of the world. Now, I'm not saying that these other art forms can't create a sense of conflict. They obviously can, but I think film is the most intense with it. It can feel raw and brutal because film isn't about one thing or the other. It's about the emotion that arises when you compare one thing to the other. It's about that invisible and non-existent moment in between the edit. If there's one image that visualizes what I'm trying to say, I think it's the Tao. Because the Tao isn't about the white or the black. It's about what they mean when put together. That's pretty much all I wanted to say about that. I'm interested to hear what defines cinema for you. I'd love to hear it down below in the comment section. Also, I might do this kind of video again, but with other art forms, discussing the strengths and uniquenesses of other mediums. If you liked the video, give it a like, click subscribe if you want to watch more videos like this one every week. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.